They all just line up to do propaganda about China when the State Department wants them to, right? What a timely segment this is, John Oliver. Right as the U.S. empire is starting to target China, right as they're creating a trilateral military agreement with the U.K. and Australia, the triad of imperialism, right as they've created AUKUS to point the gun of the empire at China, John Oliver decided to release Taiwan last week because he cares so deeply about the people of Taiwan. Definitely not just trying to add to the imperialist propaganda. What the heck, John Oliver? You should be ashamed.
Our main story tonight concerns Taiwan, and it's honestly remarkable that we haven't talked about Taiwan before on this show, given it's the birthplace of bubble tea.
Oh, it's remarkable we haven't talked about Taiwan before on this show. It's remarkable the U.S. Just now is trying to start a new Cold War with China and threaten China as a rising economic and political power on the global stage. Now it is time to talk about Taiwan. What a coincidence. Look at their boba tea. I'm so funny and British.
Which is delicious, even though tapioca ball sounds like a sex move for people over 70. And especially since Taiwan shares our unhealthy obsession with mascots. Cities there make tons of them. There is this one, the Milkfish Kid, celebrating one area's milkfish production. And there is this one from a region that produces bananas, which...
Okay, that's actually pretty cool. See what I mean by even people I disagree with? You know, even people you disagree with can teach you cool things. Taiwan's got cool mascots. Now we know.
I do not want to talk about right now. In fact, Taiwan makes so many mascots that in some cities, the very act of storing them has become a problem.
We went with the city councilor to a Taipei public school, following her into the depths.
I wonder if when I sit down with Daniel Dumbrill, if he'll want to react to something like this. That would be really fun to do that with someone like him.
Of a basement parking lot. Here, behind a door, we discovered a mountain of abandoned mascots. This is Sacred Fire Baby from 2013 National Games.
Hassan 30 minutes ago said that he pretty much agrees with John Oliver on this. Yeah, Hassan is a lib when it comes to imperialism and China, which, you know, are the most important things right now, right? Because the U.S. is targeting China. So, like, the most important thing you can do as an anti-imperialist right now is not buy into the U.S. propaganda about China. But, of course, you know, that's the exact kind of stuff people like Hassan fall for. Because they're libs and they care more about their social media presence than they actually care about changing politics or changing the system. So, you know, when it's popular to go along with F Taiwan, Hassan's like, oh yeah, F Taiwan, keep sending me subscribers, right? Keep sending me bits. Not over here though, folks, not at Midwestern Marks. We say fuck war no matter who gets mad at us for it.
Held in Taipei. The city government should really think about whether it's necessary to keep creating one-off mascots.
Oh, come on, Taiwan. You can't just keep making mascots and throwing them away. Thankfully, at the end of our seasons, our mascots go to live on a beautiful farm. A fantastic green farm where Jeff the diseased lung can breathe fresh air and the polar bear with a broken penis can get the care he so badly needs. I keep asking my producer where this farm is and she keeps telling me, I'll tell you when you're older. I can't wait. But obviously, the major reason that Taiwan ends up in the news these days is because of its relationship with China, which, to put it mildly, is fraught. And recently, it's getting even fraughter.
Its relationship with China. Taiwan is a part of China. And the Communist Party did not invent this claim to China, right? The Communist Party didn't say, oh, you know, we want to take over China and Taiwan is part of that because we've decided. Right, that was a claim they inherited from the Chinese nationalists, from the KMT, the KMT who fled to Taiwan, right, after the Civil War. The you know, China was included Taiwan, and then they had the Civil War, and that's where the KMT sort of settled, the Kuomintang, and now you have the different system, but But, you know, the Taiwan being a part of the PRC is not something that the current ruling party in China just made up.
China has long viewed Taiwan as its own national territory. China's President Xi Jinping on Saturday all but declaring it policy. The complete reunification of our country must be and will be realized, he said.
Military tensions between the two sides are soaring. China's Air Force sent nearly 150 planes into Taiwan's air defense zone since the start of this month.
Have people seen the Taiwan air defense zone? Let's see if Carl Zah tweeted it. I think he did. Gosh, I hope I can find this. The Taiwan air defense zone that they're talking about. This is the Taiwan air defense zone. It goes way into mainland China. And the air defense zones don't really mean that much. Like, they're making it act like there's hundreds of thousands of Chinese jets just flying into Taiwan, right? Like flying over Taiwan and surveilling them, because China has flown jets through the Taiwan air defense zone. Oh, you mean this? That covers like a large portion of China? That's crazy. They flew planes through there? China could have flown planes, through here? Oh, the people of Taiwan must feel very threatened.
Yeah.
It is crazy how the U.S. media, how good they are at making something out of nothing, right? Because all the media picked this up, right? This was on like all these news networks. Oh, this John Oliver video has 2 million views, and this is as mainstream as it gets, right? Oh, China flew through the air defense zone, right? And people hear that, and they go, oh, what? Surely China is threatening Taiwan. Meanwhile, John Oliver doesn't even bother to show you what the air defense zone is. It's this. Lies.
It did. Not exactly like that, I presume, in a big stack. I'm guessing they flew the planes out one at a time, not heaped on top of each other like an air traffic controller's nightmare. The point is, China insists that Taiwan, an independently operating entity with its own democratically elected leaders, armed forces, and constitution, is actually part of China and in no way a separate country. Here's an understatement. The Chinese government feels...
Because that is the claim they inherited from the government before them, of the country where they had a revolution. Taiwan was a part of China, and the only people in Taiwan who want to separate from China are separatists, like extremists backed by the United States. Because China's economy is something like 90% dependent on China, because of course China's the fastest growing economy in the world. They're soon to become the largest economy in the world, and Taiwan is right there. Of course they're economically dependent on China. If they were to split from that, the economy would collapse. It would be horrible for the people on the ground. See, this is the thing that these goofballs and imperialists like John Oliver, when they're telling these lies, they don't even mention or think about, right? Like the basic, the basic things that would happen, right, if like Taiwan or Hong Kong were to separate from China. Right, the economic fallout that would happen on the ground, how horrible it would be. Like, nobody in Taiwan supports that. They understand that China's giant economy is part of what props them up.
Strongly about this. So strongly, in fact, that when John Cena went on a press tour for the most recent Fast and Furious movie and said Taiwan is the first country that can watch F9.
Okay, someone in the chat is helping me out. I didn't know the history of Taiwan being a part of China as well as I should have. They say they have technically been a part of China since the Japanese returned control of it in 1945. So it was occupied by Japan and then returned to China. But now people are saying, they want to be independent because there's been this two country, one system policy or whatever. When in reality, that's not what people on the ground want, right? People aren't calling for like an independent Taiwan every day. If you showed this to people in Taiwan, they would be like, what? Like, this is what Americans think?
This is what happened next.
Actor John Cena has apologized to China after he called Taiwan a country.
我很抱歉对我的错误，对不起，我很抱歉。你必须了解，我很爱、很尊重中国跟中国人，不好意思。
Oh, wow. Someone who's actually traveled the world and been to China, and has been to China, realized he said something stupid. Realized he said something that didn't make any sense. He said Taiwan is an independent country when Taiwan is a part of China. And he didn't want to offend the Chinese people and their culture. What do you think the Chinese government, what do you think Xi Jinping has a gun to John Cena's head? What are you people even trying to imply here? You're so dumb. All he's saying is he's sorry for offending the Chinese people by saying something that is historically and factually inaccurate. And now Americans are like, oh, he had to apologize to the Chinese dictator. Yeah, China controls John Cena. Is that really what U.S. propaganda has come to? China is controlling John Cena? Do they have control of other WWE wrestlers? Does Hulk Hogan support Xi Jinping?
Every part of that is so weird. It's weird John Cena apologised to China. It's weird he did it for calling Taiwan a country. And it's weird to see him do it in pretty decent Mandarin. That's just too many weird things. I half expected that shot to pan out to reveal he's also doing a knee...
That's too many weird things. How could an American have respect for China's people and China's culture and China's country? How weird. It blows John Oliver's mind that John Cena would have respect for these people and their nation.
Point of Liam Neeson kissing an ostrich. Honestly, it would only make it slightly stranger. But John Cena is not alone here. Taiwan is such a third rail for China that it may be why Paramount Pictures removed the Taiwanese flag from Tom Cruise's jacket for the Top Gun sequel, and it is definitely why The Gap apologised for releasing this T-shirt featuring a map of China without Taiwan attached. That shirt caused a shitstorm, and it led to The Gap, makers of the bland T-shirts that dads wear when they're on the elliptical for 30 minutes.
There was a shitstorm in the UFC when they made a shirt for like Conor McGregor, and it didn't have Northern Ireland in it, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So it's not just China. This happened with Ireland, John Oliver, which your British ass should know more about. So they made this T-shirt of Ireland without the countries comprising Northern Ireland, because those are technically like belong to the UK or Britain or whatever. So they probably just Googled like a map of Ireland and saw this without Northern Ireland and made the shirt. And the Irish were like, you idiots, Northern Ireland is, our country. Those are our people. That's part of Ireland. And it caused a huge shitstorm, including from Conor McGregor, one of the biggest, athletic sports stars in the world. But, China's not allowed to get mad when Taiwan isn't included in a map of their country. They consider it part of China, including the Chinese people who live in Taiwan.
To apologise to 1.4 billion people. So if China is getting T-shirt retractions from The Gap, loudly vowing to reunify with Taiwan, and sending stacks of war...
Okay, someone in the chat is sending more great information. Eisenhower, though, recognized it as an independent state, and that is when it was recognized as an independent state for the first time. It was an official UN representative for 22 years until Nixon. Right. And Taiwan does not have an embassy. There's no embassy in Taiwan. There is a U.S. institute. And imperialists and liberals and propagandists will try and tell you that the U.S. institute is equivalent to an embassy. So, you hear there with Eisenhower recognizing it as an independent state and them trying to, make it as a state at the UN. This is entirely propped up by the U.S., right? This is entirely the U.S. trying to create this narrative of Taiwan being an independent state and trying to prop up a separatist movement in Taiwan to destabilize China. And it's being successfully resisted by China, and the U.S. is really mad. And their propaganda machine is going into overdrive.
Things towards it in record-breaking numbers. It feels like tonight it'd be worth taking a look at Taiwan, how it got to be in the unique position that it's in, what the world wants from it, and most importantly, what it wants for itself. And let's start with how we got here. Historically, Taiwan has been like the Stanley Cup of Asian history, in that different people keep passing it around and carving their names on it. Here is a ludicrously brief history of the last 400 years there. Taiwan, or as it's sometimes been called Formosa, was first home to indigenous people, then colonized by the Dutch and briefly the Spanish before China's Qing dynasty held it for about 200 years. Then, in
so it was colonized by Westerners, and then it became part of China. It was indigenous people. The indigenous people were killed by Westerners and colonized by Westerners. What story as old as time. That's what was going on at that time. And then it became part of China. And now, somehow, years later, it's no longer part of China because the U.S. says it needs to be an independent state. It should be. I wonder what kind of logic they're going to use to argue for this now.
1895, China lost Taiwan to Japan, which turned it into a so-called model colony, imposing Japanese...
Oh, so it belonged to China, and then it was colonized by the Japanese Empire. So that should make it an independent state? All I'm hearing is that it's China until it was colonized a bunch, which, is the story of China's history. The story of most of China's history before Mao and the Communist Party liberated the country.
These cultural values and generally ruling it with an iron fist. Then, after World War II, two major things happened. First, the Allies put Taiwan back under Chinese control. And second, the civil war that was taking place in China between the nationalist government...
So how do you hear that and think in your head that China should be independent? Even when he adds the Civil War part, how do you hear this and think that Taiwan is an independent country and not a part of China that was occupied and colonized by imperial powers and should go back to China?
And second, the civil war that was taking place in China after World War II, two major things happened. First, the Allies put Taiwan back under Chinese control.
Oh, so the Western countries... Wait, they put it back under Chinese control? Never mind, sorry.
And second, the civil war that was taking place in China between the nationalist government, led by Chiang Kai-shek, and the communists, led by Mao Zedong, ended. Now,
funded and backed by the U.S., Chiang Kai-shek was.
Spoiler alert, the communists won. Congratulations to Mao. And in the wake of that defeat, Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan along with 2 million nationalist soldiers and refugees, basically setting up a Chinese government in exile.
Right. This is what I was saying at the beginning of when we were talking about Taiwan. So you had the Kuomintang go and settle there during the Civil War. Why does that mean it should be an independent or separate country? The Kuomintang lost the war and they were U.S.-backed nationalists, and it's a good thing they lost the war. But, you know, they were Chinese. They were fighting over China. It was the Chinese Civil War. And then the Kuomintang goes to Taiwan, and, you know, they're supposed to create an entirely independent state. No, those are Chinese people who were fighting in a war for sovereignty of China.
Meaning that China technically had 2 governments at the time, one in China.
KMT is against independence, by the way. Someone in the chat says, yeah, of course they are. They're Chinese. The only people who are for independence are numbskull Westerners like John Oliver. Of course the KMT is against independence. They see themselves as being part of China. They fought in the Chinese Civil War. Yeah, they lost to the communists. Yeah, I'm on the communist side. I'm glad the communists won. But they don't think that they're not like separatists. They don't think that Taiwan should create its own state and continue waging war against China. That is a U.S.-invented fantasy.
And one in Taiwan. And Western countries were very invested in the success of the second one, even calling Taiwan Free China, because they saw it as a necessary bulwark against communism.
Against all prophecies, Formosa still keeps the anti-communist flag flying.
A necessary bulwark against communism. John Oliver's doing a good job here of showing the U.S. propaganda about Taiwan. You know, he's, by even going into the facts just a little bit, you can see how nonsensical the U.S. narrative is. I'm sure he's going to go on to say, you know, Taiwan is, or now China, you know, is ruling over Taiwan with an iron fist. You know, much worse than Japanese or Western occupation and colonization. We need to do something about it. Look how many jets China's flying into Taiwan or whatever. I don't know. But I'm done watching that. We can maybe react to the rest later. But I'm going to head out. I've been streaming for a while. I also worked all day. And I just realized I haven't eaten. And I'm really hungry. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, everyone.